comes to us out of the corporate world. He was in business analytics. So if you don't know what that is, it's not super exciting. He was not going to work every day. Crazy stuff was happening. And then he decided he needed that in his life, so he would become a real estate investor, which is really a lot what that switch is about. But as a business analyst, one of the things that you do is you receive large amounts of data, crunch that data to figure out what either is about to happen or what happened in the past. So it can actually, those skills can actually help you out with real estate investing, especially in the co-living environment, because what he's trying to do is look at a property and figure out, can this property be a better performing property broken into smaller pieces? But there is so much to do. As Sandy was asking just before, there's so many municipal requirements and other logistics that you've got to comply with. So I'm very excited to hear from David today about what he has learned in the about 7 years that he's been investing. He's gone from traditional rental into the co-living space. So he's got some great experience to share with us today. David, thanks.
Thank you guys very much. It's an honor to be here. I met Jesse at an Aspire conference. Was it early February?
Yes, sir.
And he said, "Oh, David, you know so much about co-living. Would you come and speak here?" And then I met Jeff, and we hit it off. And so thanks for having me. Really looking forward to sharing as much information as I have. It's all yours. I'm happy to share anything. And we can have this be interactive. I've got a bunch of talking points. But if you guys have specific questions, raise your hand, and then I'll call on you, or we can stay afterwards and answer as many questions as you guys like. So talking about co-living is great. Another talk I give is how successful real estate investing is very similar to having great sex. And so we can talk about that at another time. But there's so many similarities. Things like the importance of communication and having that one-on-one person, like knowing exactly, here's exactly what my market is, here's exactly what I'm looking for, and understanding all the pieces and how things adapt over time. And the other one is about adaptability and responsiveness. So in real estate, market conditions change really quickly. Also inside your relationship, sometimes those weather patterns all of a sudden shift really quickly. And so we have to continue to stay nimble and flexible and stay adaptable. So let's go back to co-living. To get an idea of who's in the room, how many of you guys are in property management? A couple? Okay, how about wholesalers? A couple? How about you guys own long-term rentals? Okay, midterm rentals? Any short terms? And commercial or industrial? Some, okay. What about you're in lending? You're a private money lender, private money partner, you do mortgages. How about you guys do maintenance or remodels or new construction? All right. Wow, this is such a cool group because we're so diverse. What did I leave out?
Co-living.
Who's in co-living? Yes. Anybody doing co-living today? Or you're really interested in... Okay, perfect. So I started out, it was about 5.5 years ago that God said, okay, now it's time, almost 6 years ago, that God said, now it's time to get in real estate. I've been interested in real estate for 15 years before that, but then the doors continue to be closed. And so what did I do? Probably similar to what you guys did is I'm going to go learn from an expert. Right? We can make a million mistakes on our own, and typically the people that go alone, they do not last because the mistakes can be really big, and then they run on money and time and effort. So the importance of partnering together with people that really, really know the space is so critical. And that's why organizations and groups like this is so important, right? We learn and we collaborate and we can make fewer mistakes that way. So I also did the same thing. So I went to a free lunch, and then it paid for another weekend and paid for another weekend. And I really learned how to wholesale in that group over a couple months. But I didn't want to wholesale. Like my goal, I wanted to own the property and do long-term rentals. And so I hired a coach, and long story short, I was buying my first house in Hickory. It was October 2019. I said, hey, coach, I need insurance. What specific insurance do I need? And he says, David, I don't really, go to ask the insurance agent. I said, they're biased, right? You're my coach, tell me that. He said, David, think about a brick wall. Every brick on that brick wall is like a different detail in the real estate transaction. And so for one person to go through and learn every single detail to make the entire transaction work, it's so complex. I mean, he ended up giving me some advice that we ended up moving forward with, but I think that also speaks to the importance of crowds like this and collaborating with the team and with people that really know how to do it, because they can speed you along that journey so fast. So we bought a house using the BRRRR method in October, another one in December, and then we bought one in March or April. I was like, holy smokes, we've got 3 houses. The second and the third one, this is where we got into CoLiving. I didn't know it was CoLiving, but we rent out the bedrooms to college student athletes in Hickory. It was right next to Lenoir University. One was a 5-bedroom, 3-bath, and the other one was 4-bedroom, 2-bath. Now, fast forward a couple months, my property manager, as I was giving him a hard time because we had 1 or 2 bedrooms that were empty, I'm like, what's the deal? How do you get? And they're like, I don't really know how to market this because these are college student athletes. You can't just throw anybody in there. And so they're just asking the residents, hey, go find some other people that you can move into the empty bedrooms. I was like, that doesn't really work. And so the room's still empty. And so then one day they came to me and said, David, we found this old 1980s or 1800s law that says if you have more than this many people that are unrelated, it's called a boarding house or a halfway house. And so they said, here you go, David, you can have the whole property back. I'm like, now what do I do? I mean, they quit, right? Here you go, you can have the property back.
Wow.
That was increasing the pressure on them at the same time. But I'd already interviewed a lot of other property managers and no one else in the Hickory area. I was like, I didn't like anyone, so I started my own property management company. How hard can it be? We're just going to figure it out. Right. It's not true. I know that now. A couple years later, hey, I'm having all these problems with remodeling companies. What do? I go start my own remodeling company. Again, bad decision. How hard can it be? This is figure outable, right? I'm a smart guy. We can figure it out. No, that's not a good idea. So then, let's see. I'm part of Sub 2, and any of you guys know Pace Morby or Jamil Damji, and any of you guys go to Squat Up Summit either last year or a couple weeks ago? Nope. All right, the most amazing event. If you haven't gone, I encourage you to go next year. It's around this time frame. At the event last year, I ended up joining this inner circle group they called Owners Club. And so they took, what Pace and Jamil said is, I want to take our tens of thousands of community people that follow us, and we want to hone in and mentor and really coach a small group. So there are 407 of us that really went through, and we got really close with them. And we learned so much. Going into our first retreat in June, Pace was talking about, what is your Mount Everest? This is our big 5-year goal that we're climbing slowly. And at that point, I had a coach. Her name is Catherine Carlson. And she was amazing. And she said, David, I need to take you from a shotgun approach to a rifle approach. You're spread way too thin. You're doing long-term rentals and college student rentals, and you have your own property management company and your remodeling company, and like you're not doing anything well. Any of you guys relate? You're involved in so many different things. And so I need to focus down and do one thing. And so I said, okay, what is it? So the next day I came to her and said, Catherine, I'm going to do this. And then at 1 or 2 or 3 days later, I came and said, no, that one won't work because of my skill sets or my gifts or here's where I want to go or the people we want to serve. It's now this thing. 1 or 2 or 3 days later, no, it's now just going to be this thing. 3 weeks later, Catherine says, David, in 3 weeks, you've had 17 different business ideas that you're 100% going forward with. You're a man of faith. Just cancel your meetings the next 2 days. Go and sit and read in the Word and listen to the still quiet of God. That next day I went and walked, spent a lot of time in the Word, went and walked 7 miles in our neighborhood, and God said, co-living is where it is. I was like, okay. I've heard co-living. It's starting to become mainstream. More people are talking about how it helps all these people and you can make more cash flow and these things. But surely I'm going to come up with there's going to be a reason. So I went into this retreat and there's 400 people. Let's see. Somebody over here mentioned earlier, you saw on my Instagram, I stood up in front of 400 people on day number 3 and said, I think I'm supposed to do co-living and here's what it looks like. And people came up in droves, not only after that, but also before that to say, co-living is where I need to focus. So that's kind of how I got into the bigger co-living. But again, I didn't want to reinvent the wheel. I wanted to go find the model, find the playbook, and I'm just going to follow it. I don't want to recreate it. So I went on this quest to look and figure it out. Who does it the best? And I can just follow their model. And so I looked at people like Sam Wiegert in Charlotte. Any of you guys know Sam? Or Grant Shipman with Living Smith out of Denver, Colorado. So both of them do something similar to a relationship-based, longer term. And I really like their models, but it wasn't quite right. The person I liked even better than Grant was behind the scenes, and her name was Jackie Impolsky. And she actually wrote all the systems and processes, checklists. She's lived in co-living housing for 20 years. And she wrote all the systems and everything for Grant. And she still partners with Grant, they still own some properties together, but she doesn't work for Living Smith anymore. So come January 1st, she now works for me, and she brought all the systems and all the documentation with her, and then we've been going through document by document by document to edit and tweak and add some new things. Then we ran them all through ChatGPT, and that way they're not exactly the same, even though there's a lot of similarities. And then we took some of those things and then put them on steroids, like how do you manage conflict within the house? That's really tough. There's also people like Pad Split. You guys know Pad Split. Anybody have a Pad Split house or you've heard of them? So what Pad Split does really well is they are in transitional housing. So what I'd like to do is let's walk through some of these different models within co-living. And that way you can see and hear what the differences are. And then you can make a decision for yourself if you want to get in co-living, and then what niche makes sense for you. And you may end up going into a couple different ones because you may have one house that works really well for this niche, like sober living, and then you find another house, and okay, this one works really well for transitional housing, so I need to hire a Pad Split kind of a model. And then another one may be more relationship-based long-term housing where we want people to live there for years. Right? So here's a couple of the different models. So let's talk Pad Split first, transitional housing. So at the end of the day, as real estate investors, 85 to 90% occupancy. The average person stays for 4 to 6 months. So now why do they stay, like why do those numbers look like that? Number one, the house is furnished. So the bedroom furniture is already there. And so you just bring your clothes and like you come set up shop. You pay by the week. You sign something saying that you're supposed to be there for at least 30 days. But that doesn't always happen. We just bought a house in Phoenix on September 30th last year. Remodeled it. It's now 6 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms. It is 100% gut. There's so much termite damage. Once the demo is done, it's like, okay, almost all the studs, all the wood has to be completely replaced as well. I think we have one exterior wall that was concrete block. Another wall we were supposed to leave, and then one day it fell, and so that one's new too. And there's like a little bit of the roof, and then the concrete pad. Now it's still a 1955 house because the concrete pad is 1955. We did a $180,000 remodel on this house. Literally 95% of this house is brand new. That's not a mistake that we're going to make again. If we're going to do a remodel of that level, we're just going to go build new construction. Does that make sense? So for co-living, we're going to do like buy an existing house that's bigger and remodel, like do light remodel, maybe one bigger item. Maybe plumbing or electrical or HVAC does that make sense? We'll do like one $10,000 thing. But we're not going to do a bunch of them because then we have too much money stuck in the house. Is that fair? Okay, so, sorry, let's go back to pad split. So we furnish the bedroom, and then we eliminate the living room. Any place where people interact, then we turn those into bedrooms. It sounds really good. I'm going to make more cash flow because I can rent out 1 more bedroom or 2 more bedrooms. But there's really no interaction. 2 weeks ago when we were in Dallas at Squat Up Summit, we were with a new construction builder there. And we walked into a 12-bedroom, 12-bath house. We were inside this house, and it's full. There's 12 people living in there. It was quiet as a mouse. Like, we didn't hear a peep from 12 people. Here's what the builder said. People come in, and they go into their room, and they shut the door. They come out of their room, they go to the microwave, take their food, go back in their room, and shut the door. And then they'll come out of the room, and then they go off to wherever they go to. There's no interaction. There's no collaboration. There's no people working together. You also bring in a cleaning crew between once a week to once a month to make sure that the house is clean and tidy and all those things. And they typically have a laundry room as well.
Clean the common area.
Depending upon the cleaning crew, depending upon the house. Typically, like the typical model is, yeah, you clean the common areas. And if the bathroom is shared, then they would clean the bathrooms as well. Some people that may want to, if you have your own bedroom, you may want to hire the cleaning crew at an additional fee. So maybe the property manager would charge them an extra $30 or $40 to also clean my bedroom at this specific cadence. Does that make sense? All right, but no common living areas where people are interacting. You do furnish the kitchen, right? So we'll put silverware and pots and pans and dishes and those kinds of things. All right, so the next model is long-term relationship-based co-living. Here's the end result. 97% occupancy, and the average person stays for 26 months. Proven over the last 10 years. This was Jackie and Grant's model. So what makes it different? People bring their own bedroom furniture. This is your house. This is where you live. And so bring your own furniture, right? It's not a Airbnb, it's not a hotel. Like, you're not just going to go sleep on someone else's bed. Whatever's there, bring your own stuff. Any of you guys do chores at your house where you live? You like clean your own house? Anybody? You mow your lawn? So because you mow the lawn, because you clean your own house, how much more value do you have for your home? A little bit or a lot? A little bit. Some people say a lot, right? Like you're taking care of this thing, right? You're putting your own blood, sweat, and tears, like to clean the floors and clean the bathroom and right, and all these things. For long-term relationship-based housing, the residents do the chores too, and there's a chore wheel, and so there's somebody that's one of the residents in the house, and they're kind of the go-between the property manager and helping to make sure that the house runs and operates effectively. So they take that chore wheel and they just rotate it one spot every week. Now there may be somebody in the house that loves mowing the lawn. And guess what? That person is probably going to trade responsibilities every week with the other people that don't like to mow the lawn, right? So they can trade. Here's a few more things. We keep a living room. Put a couch in there, even a big screen TV up on the wall. Put outdoor living space. We may put a raised bed garden in the backyard. Why? This is where people interact, right? I mean, these are humans. We're creating an environment where they thrive. Like one of the biggest fallacies that people have is they look at their phone and they say, look, I've got 1,000 friends on my social media. And yet the new pandemic in our country is loneliness. And there's more anxiety, more depression, more disease, more cancer, more suicide, more all these things. Why? Because people go in their room, they close the door, and they look on their social media and they're like, oh, that like their brain starts releasing all the good drugs, and I feel really good, but I'm not in community, actually involved in engaging with the other people around us. So how do we change that? Right? How do you change that curve that we're on? To me, like the way that we measure success with our model, and as we actually starting to sell all the systems of processes and checklists, like the whole playbook in the next 1 or 2 weeks. I think we have 80 or 90 documents. We've currently filmed 15 of 45 videos, something like that. Like it's the entire playbook. Here's exactly how a property manager or an independent owner operator can now run effectively and efficiently to actually deliver the projected future cash flow. I'm not here to pitch our specific thing. I'm just saying, like, we now have it because I couldn't find it anywhere. People like Grant and Sam, you can go and take their 5-day free course, and at the end of it, they say, hey, if you want all the stuff, it's $8,000 to $30,000. And really the done for you model, like the complete model, is the $30,000 level. I think we're going to roll it out for like $5,000. It's not for the investor, it's for the property manager who's actually going to run the day-to-day. But again, that's not why I'm here. That's not what, but I couldn't find it, right? And so we had to create it and build it up. What are some of the other changes? No cleaning crew. Oh, we also do potlucks, depending upon the house, right? We want the interaction. Imagine if you now have interaction, we're working together as a house, as a community inside that household. Now we're meeting Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like that base foundation, food, water, shelter. Now I can go and actually give. I can volunteer at the rec center and coach youth sports, or at whatever nonprofit or the church or the senior center or whatever. Right? I can at least smile to the other people at Walmart. And we're building better people. So imagine, what if our motive, like how do we measure success? What if we look at the trend lines for the anxiety and depression and cancer and all those things, and in 5 or 10 years we start to see that, and you start to see that coming down. To me, that's success. Does that make sense? So other options include sober living. So sober living works really well with the long-term relationship-based model, just with a few tweaks. So then you bring in like drug testing, sometimes you'll bring in a nurse or someone to actually dispense medication, but most of the other stuff remains the same. Oh, we talked about conflict resolution. So how do we resolve conflict within the house? Super important. One of the options and things that we do is it's called 5-on-5. So let's say Jeff and I have a disagreement. We can call for a 5-on-5. Here's what that means. Within the next 24 hours, as soon as possible, we want to try and find 10 minutes where we can sit down together. Jeff gets 5 minutes. He can say anything he wants to me. And I'm going to be respectful. He's not going to curse me out, and I'm not going to do the same thing back to him. The goal is to work through our differences and figure out how we can work together. And then I get 5 minutes to say anything I want to him. Now, at the end of that, then we say, okay, can we come to an agreement? If yes, then we have a specific document, and you fill out, here's how we're going to work together. And then we both sign it. If no, we have to wait till the next day, and then we'll do 5-on-5 again. Or we might bring in a third party. Let's say Jesse, he also lives with us. He's also going to come in, and then we'll do 5-on-5-on-5. And we each get 5 minutes. And we might do that for another day or so. At some point, if we can't figure it out, then we'll bring in our property manager, and they might come in as the mediator. And if we can't figure it out, then one of us probably has to move out, because if you've got one person inside the household that's causing problem, there's strife, and then we're not creating community, and then they're actually better to move to someplace else where there is harmony, right? So it's not a solution for everybody, but it is we have to be able to work together. Our house in Phoenix, I was just there. I flew back yesterday. I flew there on Sunday to meet with the registrar of contractors. We've had some contractor issues there. But we heard some of the tenants were complaining because, oh, this person's leaving dishes in the sink, and there's dishes all over. They're leaving trash in the common area. Well, we had to switch from the property manager we were supposed to use over to pad split. And these are my experiences with them. I'm like, okay, how do we resolve conflict? And so I'm coaching our property manager. Okay, here's how we do it. And so she's now going to start implementing our model, and we're going to slowly start transitioning how to get the people to work together. So other ones, so we talk about sober living. There's also group homes. You can do senior housing. So many seniors today, they're lonelier than anybody, right? And then they sit on their phones, and they need community more than anybody. There's also crash pads for airline employees. And I talked to some of the flight crews yesterday, and they said typically they'll have bedrooms, and they'll have 2 or 3 or 4 people that all share one bedroom. But they're not there all the time, and so typically it's not as big of a deal. But they're paying anywhere from $300 to $600 per bed to live in this house. So imagine your cash flow if you could actually make sure that everyone works together and people respect the stuff. All right, so I've given you lots of different ideas. I'd like to open this up to questions. And what do you guys think? Is this helpful?
So I got a question about the living room. You said with the past living room
Into another bedroom?
How do you close it off so other people that come out the bedrooms can't see that person?
Yeah, you just put up a wall. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And a window. Yep.
Where are you based?
Oh, I'm in Hickory, North Carolina. So I'm about an hour away. Yeah, my parents moved there when I was in high school, and so we've lived there for 32 years, I think.
So as a general question then. So, my understanding by what you said, that you own a company whereby you offer a service where you train people on how to own properties and do well with them that involve co-living. Is that what I'm understanding?
So we're creating a community around relationship-based housing, and it includes we'll do a Zoom call every 1 or 2 weeks to retrain and have this open forum, as well as the whole course that teaches here's exactly with all how to run and manage that property for property managers or owner operators that are doing their own property management.
What's your company called?
Creative CoLiving.
Oh.
Yes.
Could you speak to a little more of, I guess, how you manage the tenants? Do you have a standard, I guess, a standard lease, and then a behavioral contract, and how do people hear that? Like, kind of how's that work out?
Oh, that's such a good question. Yeah, so as part of the lease, one of the addendums is these are the household covenants. So we all agree that we are moving into a house and we're going to be cordial at minimum, but we're going to be a good roommate, right? We're not going to go and sit in the living room on the couch all day, every day. Like, we all get to share the living room and the couch. We all get to share, like, we're going to wash our dishes and put the dishes away. Some homes will actually have different color dishes for each room. I thought that was an interesting idea. That way, you know, if one person, there you go. Right. And that could be something that we implement in a house that doesn't have different color dishes. If all of a sudden, like, there's a lot of dishes that are being left out, we can go swap them out, and then now we know. But yeah, the household covenants, we put it in the lease. They understand. We'll have them watch a video and really understand, like, here's the model and how we are going to work together as a community, as a household. And if you do not like that, then this isn't the house for you. Then you need to go to a different housing model.
Have you had any instances, or how have you managed where there's a difference in the two? Like, I paid my rent. My rent's paid up, but maybe I don't want to behave a certain way, or vice versa.
All right, so do you guys like horror stories and like the here's what happened? All right, this isn't a knock on pad split. It's just the experiences I've had, right? 2 weeks ago, one of the roommates sent a message on the little job board thing to the property manager, and I get to see it because we own the house. And said, "Oh, this roommate is moaning. Oh, like, not in a sexual way, but like, just sounds really weird. Like, okay, like, just go and ask them to be, to tone it down a little bit." And they did it for like 2 or 3 days. And then the next message was they're throwing stuff all over the room. Okay, well, you need to call 911, like, get the police out there. So this guy had recently been released from some kind of a mental place, and he was smoking meth inside his bedroom. So then he was hauled out in handcuffs, and, that's a felony. He's probably in jail, and we don't get to see him anymore. But if you're being cordial and nice, and, we're being a good roommate, then we pay our rent and everybody gets to stay. The long-term relationship-based housing model, I need to go look. I should probably know this. I don't know if we do a month-to-month lease or if it's an annual lease, but there's no penalty for getting out of it early. Effectively, it's month-to-month. Here's why. For the exact reason that you just said. If somebody is not being a good housemate, the property manager can ask them to leave without violating the lease, like, we're just going to end it next month. Also, that person, if they're not the right fit, they can move out too. Does that help?
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
For shared bathrooms, do you have one gender in the whole house, or does it matter? That it matters?
Oh, really good question. Okay, so have you guys ever lived with a lot of girls?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, how is that if you live with 6 or 8 or 10 girls all in one?
A lot of hair.
Okay. How about a whole, like all guys? Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Right? We found, but have you ever lived in a larger group where there's mixed sexes? So typically, when you do have mixed genders inside a co-living house, they actually balance each other out. And the guys don't get all super macho and the girls don't get all catty, right? That's just our experience. But there's definitely houses where we need to have all women, right? Let's say you have females that have been in domestic abuse or like they're coming out of really hard situations. It's actually, number one, we probably want all women in those houses. The better model is actually to have a bunch of younger women, and maybe with or without their kids, and 1 or 2 elderly women that then they play mother and grandmother roles. And then that model works really, really well. And then grandma is like watching the little babies, and they're meant. It's more of a mentorship kind of a situation, and that works really well. Does that help?
So you were mentioning leases.
Mm-hmm.
It was my understanding that the workaround for the headcount issue was membership.
Yes.
Speak to that.
All right. So the membership agreement is a great option for if you want to get around landlord-tenant laws. For example, the number of unrelated people that live inside a house. Right? It doesn't fall underneath landlord-tenant laws because we're doing these memberships, kind of like joining a membership to Sam's Club. Now, the challenge with that is what happens when you go to evict. Now, it's one thing to say, okay, you have to get out, like we're canceling your membership. You've got 3 days or however long, and then you get out. But what if they don't? And then you actually are, and what if the police or the sheriff won't honor that and actually go change the locks? Sometimes you take them to eviction court and the judge says, sure, no problem, like you're evicted, get out. Other times, and it's like, I don't know the numbers, but sometimes it works one way and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes the judge says, no, you don't have a lease. It doesn't fall under landlord-tenant laws. So therefore, the eviction process also does not apply. So then you have to go put a lease with that person. And then you have to wait let's call it 60 days for them to not pay. And now you're violating the official lease. And then you start the eviction process. And then it's 4 or 6 months later, then that person is officially evicted and they get kicked out. We are moving forward with formal leases, but there may be certain markets where we want to experiment. But
Moving with leases, but doesn't that limit your headcount?
It typically does, correct. Especially if
Sam is out there saying we can make 10 bedrooms because the house had 3 living rooms. We can do this.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking a different position.
Correct. But we have to make the decision really house by house. We have the membership agreements, like we can put those in place, or we can put a lease in place. And what we may do is that we may put a lease in place. The best option is not to violate the housing laws. The challenge with the housing laws is that they're really old and they have not evolved with the huge challenges with affordable housing today. And so this model works really well. So landlord by landlord and property manager by property manager you have to make those decisions on your own. If you're willing to take a chance on getting caught and potential fines, and they may come in and say, okay, you have 7 bedrooms, you can only have 5, so then 2 people have to move out. Now, can you switch at that moment from a lease to a membership agreement? Maybe. Could you? Sometimes that may mean that I have to repurpose, and I need to fall back on and shift it back to a long-term rental, or I need to convert that into a sober living house, because sober living houses are a protected class, and the laws don't really apply. So that's a really good backup. And then you can either use our model with the few additional tweaks for sober living, or you can bring in someone like Oxford House, if it's an Oxford House area that they need more housing for.
I had a question with I had a question with the month-to-month versus stuff like that. But could you just do a 3-month lease? That way, the lease ends, you can make a new lease, get them out.
Mm-hmm.
But you still have the protection of the lease. Take the barrel. Make a short lease and not make it a year.
If you still have, let's say, 7 leases for 7 different bedrooms in the same house, I don't know that would actually get around the number of unrelated people in the house.
I don't know.
Yeah. Now So one thing that we did with our houses in Hickory, right near LR, instead of renting those out to college student athletes, like I think right now we have the men's soccer team in one house, and we have the men's swim team in the other house. And because those sports teams have really specific schedules and game schedules, and they're all doing almost the exact same thing from time to time to time. And if you brought in somebody that's not on that sports team, and then it's game day tomorrow, and we're doing specific prep tonight, and or exams, and we have somebody that's not a university student or something, that can cause some strife and some challenges inside that house. So it's actually much better if everyone inside that house goes to that same university and is on the same team. So how do we do that? Is we have each individual person sign the lease for the entire house instead of just that one bedroom. So they may be so each individual person is responsible for the entire $2,500 lease for the whole house. Then if one of their roommates moves out, they may shift from, okay, we're splitting it by 5, and now we're going to split it by 4. And we had that happen last year. We had a 5-bedroom house. One of the people moved out, and then there were 4. And then somebody else moved out at Christmas time, and they graduated in December, so they weren't back for the spring semester. Well, they were football players at that time. And so the 3 football players that were left, they were seniors, they were getting ready to graduate. And they said, we don't really want to move other people in. There's no one else on our team that we like that much that we want to live with. So they just split the entire rent by 3. That's fine. Doesn't matter to me as a landlord. It's actually less wear and tear on the house. But it's another option for situations like that. And so then you can get around some of those laws that way as well. Because then everyone's on the lease, and I'm leasing the entire house to each individual person. And with college students, of course, you also want their parents to co-sign. And so now we have 7 soccer players. So those 7 also have their 7 parents that also co-signed.
Beyond the regular credit and background check that we kind of do for longer term rentals, is there additional screening?
That's such a good question. Typically, there's a lot less screening that's done. Like with pad split, I don't know how these people end up getting into our house, but like that, the screening is so high level. Hey, do you meet income requirements? I don't even know if they even call the employer to verify the income. And like that has to change for B. But it's challenging. So we use Buildium property management software, and we have for 3 years. They have a really extensive background check process. And so we check, not with the pad split stuff because I can't control that, but with everything else that we do, they check credit, criminal, eviction, sex offender registry, felony registry, and within Buildium, they also use an AI scoring model that says, okay, here's each individual thing and what is the weight. Not just do you have a criminal record, but if you have a traffic tickets or parking tickets, those count as 0. If I murdered somebody in the last 20 years, then that's an automatic no. If I had, I don't know, there's a specific number, right?
I have a murderer in one of my houses. He's one of our best tenants. It happened 25 years ago. Well, it's right on the edge. But I will say, he served his time. He's a fantastic tenant. But he's also living by himself.
Sure. But there's those kind of scoring models, and then it actually recommends that person should be approved or not approved. I like that a lot because I don't have to figure out exactly what that scoring model should look like, and I can override it, and sometimes we do, both to approve or not approve. But that way, there's a lot of consistency.
So is there a lot more money made this way with having so many more heads in the house, or
It depends.
is it more problem? It sounds to me like it's a whole lot more maintenance per person.
There's more people, so there is more maintenance. The reason why the model works really well between 6 to 11 people is a couple of reasons. Number one, we're providing all the utilities, right? So that adds a lot. Typically $75 per person, but these are fixed costs also, right? And see, if you have a $120 internet bill, we're going to get the fastest internet we possibly can. Everyone's going to share. If there's 3 people or 10 people, that is still the same number, right? The trash is the trash, and it's like that number is split. So it's not always 75, but that's kind of a decent number to use per person in terms of actual cost for the utilities. But you have to run the numbers. So a lot of people, depending upon the house, you still have to get the house at a decent number. It depends upon how much cash you have to put in the house. If you can buy it sub 2 and take over somebody's mortgage, depending upon exactly the amount of cash you have to put in the house to then remodel it and add the additional bedrooms. All those factors come into play. So you could have low single-digit cash-on-cash return and 10 or 15% total ROI once you take into account the property appreciation, the depreciation on taxes, the interest payment, the interest mortgage tax deduction, the loan pay down, right? I mean, all those things go into total ROI. But there's a lot of people that, hey, I'm just going to go buy a house, and it's okay that I overpay it because I've got $7,000 a month in rent income. But then if you have $8,000 worth of expenses, then it doesn't work. Now, if we take out the cleaning costs, if we take out having to furnish the bedrooms, we may have a little bit lower maintenance cost. That certainly helps. But you can't go and buy a $600,000 house and then put $100,000 in remodel and hold $10,000 that I'm raising capital, hold that back, and $15,000 acquisition fee that then our team splits. You know, now I've got $150,000 or $200,000 in cash in that house. And then if it makes $1,000 a month, my cash on cash is really low. Does that kind of make sense? I mean, it's still deal by deal. You have to do really effective underwriting.
term, midterm. Group living.
So as long as we do effective underwriting, we don't just take any house, right? We still have to run the numbers. Typically, we can get much higher profitability from the same house. Is that fair? So sometimes that means 15 or 20%. Sometimes it's 35%. Sometimes instead of a percentage, it's $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,500 positive cash flow that one house is producing. But whenever you're looking at those numbers and you're doing the underwriting, you guys may see as you scan the internet and see people say, oh, look, I'm getting, I saw one last week, 36% cash on cash return. But they forgot to include the property management and the maintenance and the vacancy. And this is like an industry leading guy who is trying to sell a course and like share their thing. I was like, well, so just make sure that you do the numbers and run the numbers yourself.
How can we find out more from you? I feel like we got a lot more questions. You got a wealth of knowledge. We appreciate you sharing. We are 10 minutes past time. How can we connect with you further or find out more?
Yes, so I will. I'll have my Blink card out, so you can definitely scan the Blink card. We have a website, Creative Co-Living Property Management.co or .com. I'll look it up. Yep, Creative Co-Living Property Management.com. I think. No hyphen. And then, yep, Instagram and YouTube is Real Deal David Ross. And happy to help any of you guys. And we just want to share and help the people get the word out. And it's another model that I think is going to work. And it really solves affordable housing and builds the people up so they can love on each other. Right? So thank you guys very much.